Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in my last video, I explained exactly what you need to be doing if your goal is fat loss and muscle gain or maintaining muscle. In today's video, I'm going to teach you all about macros, what they are, why they're important, and whether or not you should be tracking them. So let's get into it. So I'm sure you've heard the term macros floating around, either on social media or hearing your friend talk about it or hearing somewhere I'm sure you've heard the term macros. And some of you might be wondering what the heck they are. What are people talking about when they say that they track their macros or they follow If It Fits Your Macros, or what is this word? Now I'm going to explain it to you. So macros is short for the word macronutrients. And what macronutrients are, they are the nutrients that your body needs in large quantities, which is why they are called macronutrients. Now I'm sure you can guess that there's also micronutrients, and these are the nutrients that your body needs in smaller quantities. Now I'll get into micronutrients in another video because that warrants an entire video in itself, but today I'm just going to talk to you about macros. So macros are the nutrients that make up your calories, and they consist of protein, carbs, and fats. These three things are what your calories are made up of. The calorie content of a food is essentially the sum of the macros. So how this breaks down and it's calculated out is protein and carbs both have 4 calories per gram, and fat has 9 calories per gram. So what this means is if you look at a food label and you see that it has 10 grams of carbs. Now we know that there's 4 calories per gram of carbs. So to figure out how many calories are coming from carbs in that food source, we would just take the 10 grams and multiply that by 4. So 10 times 4 is 40. So this means that 40 calories are coming from carbs in that food. So then we would do the same with protein. We would multiply the grams of protein times 4, and that would give us the amount of calories coming from protein. And then fats are a little bit different. So fats, we would multiply the grams times 9, and that would give us the amount of calories from fat in that food. Now, I'm sure if you're used to reading food labels, you might notice that something that has a higher fat content typically has more calories in it. And if you were wondering why that is, this is why, because there's more calories per gram of fat. So now we know that our macros are our protein, carbs, and our fats. And these are the 3 things that make up our calories. So, like I explained in my last video, if your goal is fat loss, then you need to be in a caloric deficit. And you also need to be consuming enough protein. So if these are the things that we should be doing, then it's smart for us to know how many calories we are consuming and know how much protein we are consuming, so we make sure that we are, 1, staying within our caloric goal, and 2, getting in enough protein. So this is where tracking comes in. Now, tracking is basically just a tool for us to keep track of of what we are consuming, of the macros that we are consuming, of the calories we are consuming. And if you really want to get into it, you can even track the micronutrients that you are consuming. So if you're wondering if you need to track your macros in order to reach your goal, no, you don't need to do it. I mean, you could just kind of, try to get in a lot of protein and try to eat well. But you really don't know, without tracking, you really don't know how much you are getting, and you're kind of just going into it blindly. And if you aren't tracking, it's going to be hard for you to work in all of those treats that you love and, not putting restrictions on yourselves to where you can't eat certain foods. It's going to be hard for you to work those things in because you don't really know how those things are going to affect your macros and your calories. So when you track, you're able to put those numbers in and see how much they fill up your macros. I personally think that everybody should track at some point of their life, just so they get a feel of, how many calories are in a certain amount of foods, how much they should be eating to reach their goals, what their plate should look like if they're trying to reach their goals, how they can fit certain foods in without going overboard, and how much protein they should be getting and what foods are made up of what macronutrients. I just think it's a really good tool to use to get a really good understanding of nutrition and of the foods you should be eating and of how you should be eating. Now, keep in mind that even if you don't track your macros, you aren't actively, putting in the numbers and putting in the food and tracking it, your body still keeps track of everything that you put into it. So maybe you aren't aware of what you are putting into the body, you're not aware of the numbers and the amounts, but your body keeps track of absolutely everything. So tracking your macros is basically just a tool for us to know what our body knows, for us to be on the same page that our body is on. And it just helps us be aware of what we are putting into our body and how much we are putting into our body so that we know we are giving our bodies exactly what it needs for it to do what we want it to do. And tracking doesn't need to be made into this huge, complicated, stressful thing where you're just consumed and you feel like you're controlled by numbers. It doesn't need to be like that at all. All you really should be focusing on is just, if you're just starting out, just track what you eat normally. Just keep track of it so you can see what you are putting into your body and you can see the numbers and see where you're at. And then from there, you can make adjustments to what you are already doing. Don't go in and try to change everything and try to overhaul your entire diet and cut things out and things like that. Don't try to do too much at once. Just see where you are starting at. And then make small adjustments to your meals so you can better hit your macros. So maybe you track your entire day of eating and you get to the end of the day and you see that you're really low on protein and you went way over in your fats and way over in your carbs and your calories are way too high and things are just off. So you can look at that and then say, okay, so what can I do to fix this? So then you can scroll back and look through what you ate that day, and you can make adjustments to your meals. So maybe you can add in a couple more ounces of chicken to your lunch, or maybe you can have a little bit more protein with your breakfast and cut back on the fats a little bit. Or maybe your dinner was really calorically dense. So maybe you go in there and you see, okay, maybe I can have a little bit more protein here. Maybe I can have a bigger portion of whatever protein source you're having. Maybe I can have half of the carbs that I had before. And maybe I can cut back on the fats just a little bit. Maybe I can cook my food in something other than oil. Or maybe I can cut back on the cheese that I'm adding. Or maybe instead of 1 cup of rice, I'll have a half a cup of rice. So it's not like you're changing everything, but you just make these small adjustments to what you're already doing. And over time, after making small adjustments every day, you start out, see where you're at, make adjustments, and then go through that day, see where you ended up, and then you make adjustments the next day. And then over time, you're eventually going to get to where you need to be. And then you'll be like, okay, this isn't bad. This is very similar to how I was eating before. I just made little adjustments and now I'm good. But you should never think that you are being controlled by numbers and you are being controlled by calories and macros. It's just a tool. Just like the scale is a tool for tracking progress and keeping track of weights, it's just a tool. The same thing goes for tracking your macros. Tracking is just a tool to help you stay on track and to keep track of what you are putting in your body and making sure that you are giving it the right things. So I'm actually really curious to know if any of you have tracked your macros in the past. Did you find it easy? Was it hard? Did you feel you got kind of felt controlled by numbers? Just let me know anything about it. Let me know in the comments below and I'd love to hear from you. So yeah, that's macros. That's what they are. That's why they're important. And that's why I think that everybody should be tracking at least at some point of their life if they have goals to either lose fat, gain muscle, whatever. I just think it's a really good tool that everybody should do at least once in their life. So if you haven't done it, I highly recommend that you try. It's really not that difficult. Once you get the hang of it, it comes so naturally and it's just so easy to do once you get the hang of it. So give it a try if you haven't yet. And if you have any questions, please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me. Get a hold of me in the comments or on my Instagram or shoot me an email and I would love to work with you and help you with any of this stuff. So if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button and I will see you in the next one.